one of the Clemson Dubcasts, recording this on Monday, March 8th. Hope everyone out there is having a good start to the week. Clemson football hits the practice fields later this afternoon, and the latest sort of thing we're tackling at TigerIllustrated.com, the cornerback situation. They are down another with Malcolm Green being out. He's going to have surgery at some point soon. So now they're down to, what, 4? I think there were 4 out there last Friday. Sheridan Jones not present. So Mike Reed got his work cut out for him. Much more on that right now at TigerIllustrated.com. Title sponsor of the Dubcast since the very beginning, back in August of 2018, Parham Smith & Archenhold Law Firm in downtown Greenville. They want you to know that their office remains open and available to serve you during the COVID-19 crisis. They are also offering their clients the ability to meet via telephone or through video conferencing. Whether you have a loved one who has suffered from a car accident, defective product, a neglectful nursing home facility, or medical malpractice issue, Parham Smith & Archenhold's Greenville lawyers can provide the protection and guidance you need. Free consultations, 864-990-4581, or on the web at parhamlaw.com. That's Parham law.com. Celero Communications, formerly known as Tandem Payment, is a full-service integrated electronic payments provider powered by leading-edge technology. Celero provides a wide array of merchant solutions, simplified payments. They make onboarding, taking payments, maintaining risk management and compliance, and getting support quick and easy. At Celero, they're all about helping you achieve sustainable growth as a business. Taking payments isn't the only thing your business needs. With Celero's solutions, you can manage inventory, sell products and services via social media, schedule staff, track sales, get reports, and much, much more. Find out more about Celero at celerocommerce.com. That's CELERO commerce.com. If you're in the Eastern Midlands and PD area and you're in any way interested in buying and selling a home, commercial property, land, need to consider reaching out to Uptown Realty. They're based out of Sumter and run by a friend of mine, Patrick Enzer, big Clemson guy, used to cover the Tigers in a newspaper capacity, longtime supporter of Tiger Illustrated, longtime listener to the Dubcast. The home buying process should be an enjoyable experience, so let Patrick and his staff do all the heavy lifting. All you got to do is pick up the phone and call 803-774-0435 or go to uptownrealtysc.com. Okay, to our conversation. Justin Foster, really impressive guy. A big reason for that is how he's handling the end of his football career. Really graceful, thoughtful way of going about it on his part. And he's got a lot of big things ahead of him, even though they won't be on the football field. All right, really enjoyed this conversation. Here we go. Honored to be joined by Justin Foster here. How you doing, man?
I'm doing okay. Just still battling with COVID and the shortness of breath and things like that. But, just doing all right. Just making it through it.
So are you a long hauler? Is that the best description of it, or?
Yes, that is the term that the doctors have classified me as a long hauler.
Okay. And so your decision made, I guess, last week, which you announced on social media with a really eloquent and thoughtful statement. I'm just curious how long that was in the making, and how much did you wrestle with it back and forth and all that?
It kind of had been something that had been brought up during this past season, just when in doctor's appointments and in the training room with just the medical professionals that were in there. And it was something that was always brought up, and, just something to think about down the road, if things did not get better. And after the season was kind of, we talked a little bit about it, and just kind of went from there. And we did some more tests. And throughout those tests, it kind of was a point of just saying, it's not really getting any better. And the term, they always would say you just needed more time. That was always what they would say. It's just time. It's not really any medicine or anything that's going to, cure this. All of a sudden, it's just time more than anything. And when you ask, time frame, when we first started out, okay, it's 3 months here or 6 months and you'll be better on this medicine. And then, we're getting close to a year, and, we had sat down, just ran those tests, and that's kind of, after the end of the season, that's kind of had been the conversation ever since then, and going back and forth, just trying to figure out. And I kind of tossed around with it, trying to figure out how long I wanted to wait, and just figuring out the best decision for me. But it probably was probably a month and a half of just going back and forth, actually talking about it and figuring out what was the best thing.
And then you sat down I guess, and then once you made the decision, can you take me to that day and who you informed first, like the series of phone calls you made?
Well, let's see how to put this. I had already talked with Coach Sweeney multiple times just about this, and he just wanted me to wait a little bit longer, think about it, and just make sure that I was confident in my decision, and I didn't want to regret anything or anything like that. So me and him, it already had kind of been on everyone kind of already knew about it. I just hadn't made the final decision. But I guess the people, how I went about it, I talked with Woody McCorvey, all the position coaches, and just kind of went through there. And then a lot of the other players and stuff, they knew in the building that kind of it was my decision already. And then the training room, they already had knew, just because talking with them on a daily basis. And then Coach Sweeney was the last one I went to just for the final say so. And I went in there and talked with him, and that was the final person I talked to about it, just making it official.
And he had said he was I don't know if hoping's the word, but he was holding out hope that he thought it was still possible that you could wait it out and eventually be an NFL player. Was he? I don't know if it's. Was he? I don't want to say trying to sell you on that, but was he trying to, I guess, maybe encourage you toward that, toward that possibility?
Yeah, I would say he didn't want me to just sell myself short, and he was just, telling me what my future could be, if this did get better, and opportunities I would have if I was to continue playing, and that the NFL was something. It was something that I would love to do, love to play, and just with everything that's going on, Coach Sweeney is always very hopeful and things getting better, and I am too. It's just that Coach wanted me to just stick around, and I was not okay with just sticking around with. From the doctor visits and the last couple of tests we did, and just, the doctor recommended that it would be best to step away from football. And that's kind of, I trust them, and they're the medical professionals. So I had trusted them with it. But yeah, I mean, it was, let's see how to put it. He always would bring up the NFL thing just to show, because that's kind of the thing, once you graduate. I already graduated this past December, and it's kind of the thing, you're playing, and most players are playing, and they're hoping to get a shot at the NFL. And that was always something that I wanted to do, and he knew that. And he just didn't want me to make any crazy decisions without thinking about it and thinking everything through.
And you mentioned that the various medical folks have tried to give you an idea of, okay, this is how long it's going to be, but I mean, geez, it's hard for them, like with a virus, like a new virus that everybody's still trying to figure out. Is it even possible for them to accurately say, okay, this is when we think you will better or are able to play football again? I mean, it's kind of it's all kind of a crapshoot, I guess, isn't it? Or is that the feeling you get?
I would say, I mean, the virus is still new to, everyone in the world. I mean, medical professionals, just a normal person. It's new to everyone. They're learning new things every day about the virus. And, I can't, I wouldn't say most of the doctors, starting out, they would, the best of their knowledge, they would, tell me what they thought and go from there. But, as research keeps going on, they learn new things. And as of right now, they're still figuring things out. So they don't have a timeline for a person that's like a long hauler effect. And I guess, they classify me in that. And they don't really have a timeline for that. So that's kind of the hard thing is, this when you start out with 6 months or you start out with this, you take this medicine and you'll be better. It's not like the flu or any other, thing you can get. And, you take this medicine and, in 8 weeks, you're back to normal. You're good to go. Right now, they're still doing so much research, and things like that it's kind of just the unknown at the moment. And who knows when they'll have either a cure or, what's the next thing to do when people that, are having symptoms and these things long down the road, So it's kind of still in my opinion, it's up in the air just on, when that will be. And that's kind of where the situation led for me is the doctor was just very upfront with me and told me that, time is just a thing, and he doesn't know how long that could be. It could be 3 months down the road, or it could be another year for all he knows. And that was just kind of the turning point for me. If they truly don't know just yet, he said that I'm not in any harm. There's nothing going on with any of my scans to put me at risk of anything crazy going on, but I'll be fine to do normal activities, but not to push myself. So that's kind of where I had to sit down and make my decision. But I don't believe that there is a timeline, exact timeline that someone is comfortable in saying that, someone would be better in this time frame.
So here on March 8th, obviously you're not participating in athletics or doing anything like that. What are your limitations just in everyday life right now?
So I guess I'll give you kind of a breakdown of just my medical things that they diagnosed me with going down the MUSC. So I got diagnosed with vocal cord dysfunction. I also, obviously COVID with short of breath. I have allergies and asthma. Kind of put my asthma in a very severe state, allergies in a severe state. I'm allergic to everything. And I had some problems with just swallowing, and with acid reflux and things like that, that came up, just from after having COVID and things like that. So with all those, I have problems on a daily basis, just eating normal food that I would have ate before COVID, just swallowing. I have to make sure I do a lot of clearing of my throat, talking for a very long period of time. Sometimes it affects me, sometimes it doesn't. It affects me where I get to where I'm out of breath and I can't talk anymore for a while. I have to just rest. Any physical activity other than walking, if I begin to jog, walk at a fast pace, lifting things, I begin to get out of breath very quickly. And when we were doing, trying to do workouts and trying to work it back into things, just testing things every day, it came up, maybe I'm out of shape, which is true. I'm probably out of shape now just from, not being in physical activity for a long period of time. But, we worked for a couple months, just, making sure I'm biking, I'm doing something every day just to try to build everything back up. And, after doing that for a while, it still kind of led to the same thing. I would do a workout and I would be down for 3 days just with my breathing. So everyday activities, I wouldn't say they're normal. If you would see me, I probably wouldn't say much about it. I just kind of try to push through as much as possible. But most of the time I'm out of breath and I just have to adjust what I'm doing. If I'm going somewhere or whatever, I just have to slow down and just make sure that I don't push it to a limit of pushing myself into an asthma attack or just to something extreme. So it's just a process that I have to adjust to that I'm not used to.
That's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So is the interpretation you've been given that COVID caused allergic reactions to mess with your vocal cords and all that, or is it something different from that?
There's still studies and things coming out as far as what COVID has caused. The diagnosis that I got was that I may have had a lot of these things at birth, and they probably would have never affected me but with me contracting COVID, and I guess they're still trying to do research to figure out how all these things correlate to COVID. But for me, attracting COVID, it kind of set some of these things off and just kind of triggered them. And that's kind of just how they left it is, if I didn't get COVID, I probably never would have had any of these problems. I probably would still have my allergies and asthma I have to deal with. But other than that, they say, probably wouldn't have had vocal cord dysfunction or, the bad acid reflux stuff that's going on. So they kind of put it as, they don't know exactly if it caused it or you already had it, but something with COVID kind of triggered it. And they just kind of left it around there and went from there.
And so was it ever articulated to you the danger of resuming playing football, playing and practicing football? Like what could happen? What could have happened?
Just with pushing myself on a daily basis. It's just that I push myself, and with being short of breath, with my numbers as far as my heart rate, I'll push my heart rate to a high level that I'm not usually used to. It feels like your heart's beating out of your chest. And a lot of other people that have had COVID that are dealing with similar things can, they have that same feeling of where, you just feel like your chest is just beating so hard and just your heart rate's just really high up there. And that was one of the things that they were worried about, just when you're running around and then being short of breath. And then if it was pushing it to where it was an asthma attack or something like that, it was just something that was very hard to bear with on a daily basis and trying to play football. So if I was able to go out to practice and do something or do a workout, I would do the workout and practice. And then for the rest of the day, I'm kind of just done for the day. There's not really much else I do. You kind of just sit around, sleep, and not do much just because it would take so much energy away from me. And most of the time I would have really bad chest pains. I wouldn't feel good at all. And that was just kind of the things when I was playing, that was brought up with the doctor, and I would tell him. And, there was nothing that they were extremely worried about other than the fact that I was short of breath and with my heart and things like that. So that was just kind of the things that at the moment they were like, you're not pushing yourself. I mean, you're pushing yourself, but it's not a danger at the moment. But down the line, if you keep trying to push yourself and the breathing does not improve, there could be problems with heart and other things down the road. So that was kind of where they had left that. And then not knowing the long-term effects of COVID, of how it affects the body and different like that. So
you mentioned that you talked to other people who also had the heart beating out of their chest. You talking about like friends, or just maybe is it there people just you've come to, just acquaintances, or
just a lot of like other players and stuff. Just after they got COVID, they would have problems of that. Someone would be short of breath, even if they didn't have asthma, things like that. But just they felt that their chest and stuff was like, it just felt hard to breathe, and it just felt like their chest was beating really hard. And a lot of their symptoms improved very quickly, obviously compared to mine. But that was just a common thing that was just lingering along. And then even with just normal family and friends that have got it, they kind of feel the same way. And that's just kind of, I guess, a common thing. And I still, to this day, have the chest pains, even if I'm not working out or if I walk, I'm just walking around the neighborhood, I still have the really bad chest pains and things like that. So,
how much, I guess, what did your family think about the decision? And I'm sure you consulted with them plenty during the whole process, like your mom, your dad, your sister, I guess.
Yeah, I talked with them about it, and their biggest thing was just my health. And obviously my twin sister has asthma, so she kind of understands some of the things that going through with just shortness of breath and how I feel on a daily basis. And the biggest thing is it's hard to explain to people, in my opinion, even like with doctors, just explaining to them how you feel with this, just because it's new to them, it's new to us, and just explaining like how the shortness of breath feels on a daily basis. Like, you're short of breath when you wake up. You're short of breath when you start to do anything. And if you're already short of breath and you start to be doing anything else, it gets worse. And then just explain to them. And then, like, my sister was a person that really understood because she has asthma, and with having asthma, you've had asthma attacks and things like that. So, what it's like when someone tells you, like, you just can't physically breathe. But I mean, all of them were very supportive throughout the whole process, and just knowing the biggest thing with them was my health and make sure I was comfortable with the decision. And if I was comfortable with the decision, then they were fine with it. And that's kind of just how we left it. And I just told them how I felt about everything. And my dad and mom just said if I was comfortable and I was at peace with hanging up football, then that's the best decision for me, just for my health.
If it's hard for you to explain to doctors what it's like, then I'm sure that out on the practice fields, it's not easy for coaches to really understand what you're going through. And it's like, wait, why he looks okay? Why isn't he, why isn't he back out here? Like who was the person that explained it that had to maybe convey to them how the magnitude of it? Was it you? Was it the doctors? And what was that process like? I can't imagine it was the easiest thing in the world back in the summer when they don't have the knowledge, the coaches meaning, and even fellow teammates, they don't really understand what you're going through. So what was that process like?
It was a very difficult process, especially after getting COVID and the time when we had voluntary workouts, just expressing how I felt. Because at the time, I didn't even know that, all this stuff was going on. I just know that I didn't really feel good. I was super tired. I was very short of breath. And then from my knowledge, I just thought that, it was asthma. I just thought I've had asthma all my life. And I was like, I hadn't worked out in a couple of weeks with the football team. I kind of did my own little workouts at home during quarantine. So I just thought, well, maybe I hadn't been in the routine of, what we do on a daily basis and pushing ourselves to that limit. So maybe it's just I'm out of shape. And that's kind of like where we started with out of shape. And then it was like, okay, obviously something's going on with Justin. He can't finish the workouts. He can't do this. And every time we, the team doctor would check us, I was wheezing, and we just said it was asthma. And that's kind of how I felt about it. Everyone felt that was asthma, and which is a normal assumption with wheezing and shortness of breath like that. And that's what in the past from my freshman and sophomore year, that's what we always dealt with. I mean, when I would have the seasons change and my asthma would flare up, and, we'd just do some nebulizers and my inhaler. And most of the time in a day or so, I'll be back to normal. And that's kind of the process that we started. And, as a couple weeks went by, it wasn't back to normal. I would go try to run, and if you would see me in the facility walking around and stuff, I'll be fine. I walk around, and most of the time, I would feel short of breath, but it wasn't enough that people could know that, okay, Justin's not feeling good. And most of the time I never really say much about it. Every time someone asks me, I say, I'm all right, and keep on moving. But, it was very hard for people to see, okay, he can come to meetings, he can come do all this stuff, but why can't he work out? And, obviously if you see someone with an ACL and, they're in a brace or they're on crutches or, something like that, you can actually see it. But looking at me, they're like, okay, he's perfectly fine. And that's what kind of everyone thought for the longest time. And then, with, multiple doctor's appointments, just checking over things and then doing multiple tests over and over and over, once I did my breathing test, it kind of alerted that, okay, his breathing is not normal at all. And that's not with him working out or doing anything. It's like his normal breathing just sitting there is not normal. And that's kind of where it all started. I did the breathing test, and that test showed that, my resting, sitting there, breathing wasn't normal at all. And that's kind of where the process started from there. And then that's when it was multiple doctor visits everywhere. And then from there, the trainers and stuff alert the coaches and tell them just kind of what's going on. And coaches would check in on me. And, it was still hard for coaches and players and stuff to understand. But, once I did not start playing through the season, obviously people knew that something was going on pretty serious. And, most people just ask how I'm doing and go from there. I wouldn't go into many details just because when I did explain it, a lot of people just didn't really understand. And that's just kind of how it was. And then with the doctors, I would just tell them how I felt. And the more tests we did, the more it was like, okay, you have this going on. This is why this is happening. This is why you feel this way. And kind of just went from there. And once we kind of got everything that was going on, it was just kind of like, okay, now how long will this take to get better?
Mm-hmm.
And that was always the question of how long would it take, and from there.
So before the reality was apparent to everyone after all the tests and stuff, did you feel like there was this notion held by some maybe that, oh man, his heart figuratively isn't in it, or what's wrong with him, like that? You sort of felt that?
I felt that like myself. I don't think that anyone felt like that. I think like myself for a while, I was kind of questioning myself on everything. I was like, for a while until the doctors actually found anything, I was questioning myself. I was like, am I really out of shape? Like, am I just like, is something wrong with me? Like, am I just like mentally something's off? Because I'm like, if the doctor's not finding anything, then like I should be fine. And that's kind of how in my head. So I would leave a doctor's appointment getting good news that, your heart's good or this is good. And I'll be like, okay, I'm gonna go work out. I'm gonna try this again tomorrow, see how it does. And, I will push myself and I'm like, I'll leave out of the weight room or, wherever. And I'll walk back in the training room and just shake my head at the trainer and tell him, it's like, that's the same. And, a lot of people didn't understand. And I questioned myself. And I don't think anyone ever questioned if my heart was in it or anything, just from, how hard I worked and everything before. So I don't really think that was any out of a question for anyone. Everyone never questioned me or anything like that. A lot of it was just kind of questions of like, what's going on? And, that was really the question of what's going on, especially by a lot of players. And, I try to explain it to them like I can't breathe, I'm shortness of breath and things like that. And that was just really the main thing of just what was going on and kind of going from there.
Just more of a mystery of it. Yeah. So you sounds like if you've had asthma and allergies your whole life, it sounds like it was always something you had to maintain and something you dealt with on a very, I guess on a regular basis in athletics.
Yes. Most of the time, just dealing with asthma, I've always grown up when I was a kid, I always kept an inhaler with me. And most of the time I would never have to use it. Every once in a while I would have to use it. But most of the time it was just when the seasons changed and pollen start falling, that's when I would have problems with asthma and allergies and things like that. But like I said before, it was usually just, do my inhaler a couple times or a nebulizer, and, I would be good to go either in a couple hours or so or right then, or maybe just a day or so. And then usually I was good to go and, back playing or whatever I was doing. It never was to the point where it would take me out of a sport, to where I couldn't play at all. And most of the time, even with having asthma or a reaction from whatever, most of the time, once I got the medicine I needed, I could push through it and keep on playing.
Can we go back to, I guess, March of last year? I guess a year now is when the pandemic really, I guess, struck our shores first in this country. Can you remember the first time you heard, I guess everybody's calling it coronavirus back then. People weren't calling it COVID at the time, I don't think. When you first heard, like, were you curious? Did you think much about it initially?
At first, I didn't really think much about it. You hear all these other, diseases or viruses that come across the news and stuff, and none of the stuff ever really hits home. And it's like, okay, those people got it, and they're getting better. Okay, that's good. And, go from there. And then like when we heard about it and they were like, okay, we got to start doing these protocols and doing this. It's like, oh, this is going to be gone in no time. Like that's kind of like the reactions from like all the other players. And that's like, okay, this will be gone in no time. And then as it started, I want to say it was our spring break. I think we went on spring break, and after spring break, we didn't come back because of the virus. And that's when it kind of started hitting. And then after after a month or so, we were in the voluntary periods where, no one was on campus. We could come to campus if we wanted to, but there was nothing mandatory. It was kind of like, okay, this is kind of weird, and that's when it kind of like really started hitting me that okay, this is really serious.
Mm-hmm. And so, with you personally, once you start learning more about it, and you learn that people with pre-existing conditions such as your asthma tend to be affected in a greater way by it. What's going through your mind then? And are you sort of, I guess, on higher alert, so to speak?
I mean, for me, it was always, you can't be scared to go do things still. I mean, you still got to live your life and, do what we usually do. I mean, just be more cautious. So always wearing a mask, obviously limiting where I was going, not crowded places, because most of the things were shut down, especially in the Clemson area. I mean, there really weren't any places to go to do anything. So I was kind of more just in the house, but at the same time, just being cautious, make sure I always had a mask on. And I really didn't go many places especially once after spring break and we kind of got locked down. I kind of just stayed in Clemson at home and, either back to the facility. I would go to the facility, do workouts, come home, and then it was either just get food, come back to the house. And that was kind of my routine for a while because, pretty much everything was shut down and there really wasn't much to do at all. So, but as far as the asthma stuff and everything like that, I would there ain't really much you can do about it. Just be cautious and go from there and make sure you wear your mask.
So you guys come back. Was that late May or late June? I want to say it was late May, right?
Yes, I want to say we kind of kept flopping back and forth between voluntary and then mandatory back and forth. So we kind of just kept flopping back and forth. But around that time is when we kind of started back up.
Yeah, and then I guess early to mid-June is when y'all had the outbreak with a bunch of people getting it.
Yes.
Is that when you got it?
Yeah, the first couple outbreaks or so, I did not get it. I want to say I was kind of like on the last end of things. Excuse me. And on the last end of things, I tested positive on, I want to say around the end of June when I tested positive.
And then what? What were the next couple of weeks like? I guess you were having to isolate.
So got a text message from the trainer saying you had tested positive to start your quarantine. Started quarantine, stay at the house, just stand at the house. I would walk around the neighborhood, use dumbbells and things like that, resistance bands, do a workout at home. And the first couple of days or so, I felt fine. I didn't really feel anything. Just slowly I got a headache. From a headache, I start to feel really, really tired, lost taste and smell. And from there, it just kind of went on. And those were kind of just all my symptoms. I didn't really have the fever or anything like that. And most of the time I was still trying to get up, move around. But it wasn't too bad actually having the virus. Obviously no taste and smell, but the really thing was just the fatigue hitting and being so tired was the main thing that really affected me. But other than that, I didn't really feel, I want to say I felt tired and fatigued for probably 3 or 4 days where I just sat around and didn't do anything. But after that, I started to just feel a little bit better. And then, after, I think it was a 10-day quarantine, after that went and got checked from Dr. Reeves. And then, he checked me and cleared me to start back going out and things like that. But even then, things were still shut down, kind of like shut down. So it was still like quarantine. I mean, you went back home and I really didn't leave much. So.
And so then I guess when you come back and resume workouts, when was the first time when it hit you that, man, this something doesn't feel right, and when there could be something wrong? I
want to say it was the day after I got cleared from Dr. Reeves. I left the facility and I was taking a walk around the neighborhood, and I was just walking, and I hit a hill, and I immediately had like an asthma attack, and stopped right there. Got myself under control, made it back to the house, and started my inhaler, albuterol. I alerted the trainer I had an asthma attack, and he made sure everything was good. And from there, I began to try to do workouts the next week. Did workouts. I only did like half the workout, and that's when it began of, okay, maybe I'm out of shape. Is it just asthma, allergies? Let's take these medicines and we should be good, because that's usually the normal routine, and that's kind of where it all begins.
Mm. And at what point did you start thinking, man, if I can't do this, then football might not happen for me this season?
I was very, very hopeful throughout all of fall camp. Fall camp. Almost, I want to say, into 3 or 4 games into the season, I was still really hopeful that I was going to get a chance to play. And even towards the end of the season, I mean, because it would be a week or so that I felt really, really good, was able to do a little bit more workouts, and I felt, okay, maybe if we can continue like this, in 3 weeks from now, I'll be feeling a lot better. I'll be able to go out there and maybe just play a couple downs here and there or whatever. And so pretty much throughout the whole season, I was very hopeful of getting back to play, even coming to like the AC championship and semifinals and playoffs and stuff. I was still pretty hopeful. It didn't really, I kind of figured I wouldn't play, but I was always hopeful and trying to just work out and push myself just for the chance, if things did turn, that, I would be ready to play. And that's kind of just how the process went throughout the whole season. And, it'll be 2 weeks I'll be working out. I felt really, really good. And then, the next 2 weeks I'll be down just because, like, shortness of breath, chest pain is really, really bad. And, and then having so many different doctor's appointments. And I was always at doctor's appointments all the time. So, I mean, I was just hopeful throughout the whole process, just going through that. And for me, it was tough just mentally and physically, just dealing with it, because I began to have a lot of fatigue. Just as I would work out in the morning, try to work out, and the fatigue, if I worked out, it would just be all day long. I would just be so tired. And most of the time before coronavirus, I mean, I never really did nap during the day, or, I would just get up, and most of the time I worked out 5:30 in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, get the workout done, class, practice, workout again, stuff like that. And I was always going, and ever since I got the virus after that, and when I would do a workout, it was like I would have to sleep for 2 or 3 hours just so I could feel better, just to start back moving around and doing things.
It has to be such a weird, foreign sort of feeling. Like, I mean, as a high level athlete, you're wired to push through everything, every form of adversity, I guess, or pain or whatever. And so what can you describe what that conflict is like when you're trying to balance your natural athletic sort of high-level competitive instincts with listening to your body and trying to be conservative and careful with what you're doing?
I mean, obviously, from playing sports all my life, I mean, like you said, I've been driven and always to push through whatever. If it was an injury, if it was, not feeling good, it didn't matter what it was, always to just push through. And, that's just kind of how I've always been wired. If I had any kind of cut, bruise, whatever, we just push through. And just the process of getting the virus and starting through all that was very difficult. Just most of the things, you try to push through, but when it's like, oh, well, it's shortness of breath, it's like, I can't really control too much of that. I can take my medicine, but when I'm going to a workout or something and just trying to do something, and it's like I physically can't do it, and it's because of shortness of breath. And most of the time it's like, okay, well, it's an ankle or hamstring. It's like, all right, we'll just tape it up, take a ibuprofen or whatever, and just go with it. And you just have to deal with the actual pain of it, what it is. And most of the time, when you're in the zone and you're out there playing or you're doing whatever, after you get started, the pain, it's just not there. I mean, it's still there, but it's not there, and you don't really feel it. And it's just like whatever, your adrenaline kicks in and you're good to go. But like with this, it's just like physically, I can't do another half gast or another sprint. I can't lift the weight because I can't really breathe. Like, it's like I can breathe like enough to stay alive, but actually like pushing myself to do stuff, it's just like I can't do it. And it was a lot of times, I would go in there lifting weights, and I would be lifting with the team, and I would just walk away for a while. Or if we were doing a workout, I would just walk away, and I just needed time to myself, just because, like you said, I mean, it's just natural for me to push through everything. And I want to go again, but in reality, it's like I know I can't push myself anymore. If I push myself, things don't go well when I do push myself, and that was kind of always the thing with the doctor. He said, push yourself until you don't feel good. He said the moment you start having chest pains, really getting short of breath, stop. Well, I mean, it's like, well, if I go from what the doctor says, if I do one sprint, or if I walk fast, I mean, I'm short of breath. So it's like, I mean, what can I possibly do? And that was always the thing, is like, okay, so what do I do if, I barely do any physical activity and I'm short of breath? Or if I walk up the stairs going to the team meeting and I'm out of breath? It's like, so what do I do? And that was the battle that I always fought with, not pushing myself to the point where I'm so short of breath that I might have to get oxygen, or someone has to go with the trainers because I just can't physically move or do anything. And it's like, okay, well, I have to just control myself and tell myself that, we're going to go this long, and when I do feel this pain, just stop. And if that's going 5 minutes, or if it's going 20 minutes on the bike, or if that's lifting weights for only 5 minutes, then we'll just figure out how to modify the workout so that I can get a decent workout in. And that's just kind of the process that we went through throughout the whole season. I mean, even throughout the season, fall camp, everything I did was always modified, just because even the bare minimum that, most players could do when they're injured, the normal routine that they would do, I couldn't do that. And if I did do it one day, then the next day is like, okay, yeah, he's not going to be able to do anything. And, the doctor would check me every single day, and he's like, yeah, he's not moving air well. And that's kind of like how we would always say, is just like, he's not moving air well today. It'd be best if he probably didn't do anything, maybe just walk some laps around the field, because he's not moving air well now. If we push it any harder, it's just going to get even worse from there, and it's going to be very difficult for him to do anything. So that was just the process of, but I mean, for me, mentally and physically, it was just hard, just to try to push yourself every single day, and you physically just can't do it.
Yeah, I mean, getting to a championship level, I mean, as a team, as a player, I mean, the fourth quarter videos, like, they don't put rings on smooth hands. Like, you push through, you push when you feel pain, you push through that. And so it's got, man, I can't imagine what that must be like. So like on your best day working out, what were you able to do?
Usually I would go up, I would get on the Peloton, I would do a low impact ride, and I would ride for anywhere from 20 to 45 minutes, just at a slow, easy pace. And that was my cardio for the day. because if we went outside and I actually ran, I would probably do 1 or 2 sprints and I was done for. And if I got on the treadmill, I couldn't walk that long on the treadmill unless it was at a very, very slow pace. So we felt that the Peloton, I could ride at a decent speed, and that was the best cardio for me at the time. So most of the time I would get on the Peloton, ride till I didn't really feel, and so I start to feel my chest and stuff like that, or shortness of breath, and then I would get up, usually go take my inhaler or do a nebulizer. I would usually rest from around, either from like 10 minutes to almost 45. I would just sit around and rest, usually stretch or something in between. And then I will go from there and try to lift weights. And, lifting weights could be, I would get through half the workout, or, I would get through a full modified workout and just kind of go from there. And usually after the workout, I would have to sit down. I would sit in the locker room while we were at practice, and I would sit there after I got done working out for an hour to 2 hours just because I was short of breath, and then until everything settled back down so I could walk outside and be around everybody and talk and do things like that, just because it was difficult if I would go work out and immediately go and be around people and people asking questions, because the question was always like, how do you feel? You gonna be like, you getting better? And that was always the question. And I never wanted to answer the question, because I'm like, I don't know if I'm getting better. I don't know. I really don't know. I'm just like, because I'm like, one day it's like, okay, I feel really, really good. The next day it's like, I feel worse than I did 2 weeks ago. And it's like, I don't know. So, that was the lines of a normal workout for me, and it just ranges. Sometimes it would be 10 minutes on the Peloton and then like a 15-minute weight session before my asthma stuff, or asthma or COVID, however you want to put it, just kind of kicked in, and just was like, okay, I'm not really moving there well. And I would usually go to the doctor before I started the workout, let him listen to my breathing, check everything, and get the go-ahead from him, start working out. As soon as I start working out and felt anything, I would go back in and let him check to see how things were. And he would usually say, you're breathing, you're not moving there as well from, 20 minutes of just doing something. And that's kind of how the process went.
So even on the best days, it was like, what percentage would you put on it? The number of, like, the percentage of your normal, like half?
I wouldn't even say half.
Wow.
I would say it was like 35, 40%. Maybe not even that. Just from, I would say, just the things that I was used to doing. You're used to running half gasters or 110s and things like that, and you run 20 of those at a high pace, and, you come in, you might get a 2-3 minute rest, and you're back lifting, and, you go through a whole lift, and most of the time, just for me, I would always push myself beyond what the chart said, what you're supposed to be lifting. And that was just always the normal for me. And even after a normal workout without COVID and stuff like that, after that, I would still, we would go get in the pool. We would, do different, just position work and things like that. And, I just never, after getting COVID, I never even did any of that stuff anymore. It was just like, okay, if I can't even do the normal running and lifting, it's just like, well, how is it possible for me to even try to do any of the other stuff? So, I would probably say, at the best, like 40%, maybe.
Want to share a quick word about Founders Federal Credit Union. If you've been to a sporting event in Clemson, you've probably heard about Founders already. They are the official credit union partner of the Clemson Tigers. In addition to that, all Clemson faculty, staff, and students are eligible for membership, as well as IPTAY members. Matt Gross is a proud Clemson alum and the vice president for the Clemson market for Founders Federal Credit Union. Matt's office is located beside the Walmart Neighborhood Market on Old Greenville Highway in Clemson. For more information, go to foundersfcu.com. Harris Flooring has been a major part of the facilities enhancements over at Clemson, not just with athletics, but also at the university level. And we are thrilled that they are a part of the Dubcast as a sponsor. Since 1947, The Junkins family and Harris Flooring have provided a unique shopping experience through value in their services, developing the right product solutions, and delivering on their promises. To check out some reviews on their work, just go to their Facebook page, Harris Flooring America. Rave reviews, just first class all the way. Phone number 864-642-6183. Another loyal supporter of the Dubcast is Blackacre Law Firm in Greenville, a subsidiary of Parham Smith and Archenhold. Blackacre helps South Carolina residents achieve their dreams of home ownership by providing experienced professional representation for real estate closings. Attention to detail is crucial in real estate law. Blackacre is committed to making sure nothing gets by them preparing residential or commercial closings. Blackacre also offers estate planning services for their clients in the Greenville area. Find out more about Blackacre at 864-326-3507. Xavier Thomas had his own complications from COVID. What was that like for him? And I'm guessing you and he probably shared a certain kind of kinship over going through that struggle, or not?
Yeah, we talked a good bit through it, and I think a lot of his was just he was dealing with kind of the shortness of breath and chest beating. That was just kind of his thing, and his did take a little. His was a little bit shorter, obviously, than mine, and he did get better as the season went on. But his first little bit out of quarantine, he's just, shortness of breath, and his chest hurting was really just a lot of things that he dealt with. And, we talked here and there about it, but, his did eventually get better for him.
And now I think Dabo, before August camp started, Dabo sort of announced his situation. He was never specific about yours, and I all along I just guessed that you wanted to keep your situation private, and he was honoring that. Is that right?
Yes. We didn't really know what was going on. We didn't know if I was going to be back, and I just felt best to just just not to really comment on it. And, I think how Coach put it was he's in our protocol, and that's just kind of how he left it for a while. And then I kind of told him, we had mentioned it one day. I said, it's cool if you say, if it's asthma, allergies, or something along those lines, just because I didn't want him to go out and, say, well, he'll be back at this time, and then I'm not back, and things like that. And that's just kind of, I just wanted to keep everything private until, we got an actual idea of what was going on and different things like that. So that's just kind of, I just wanted to keep it private as possible.
Sure. Did you ever have to go on oxygen?
I never did go on oxygen. I would use oxygen here and there when I wasn't feeling good. Just to help out, but I was never on oxygen or anything like that.
You mentioned going to MUSC. How many different doctors and specialists have you seen? Has it just been all over the place?
It's been all over the place. All throughout Clemson, Greenville, and then we jumped down to MUSC, and I'd had tons of visits down to MUSC, and then we didn't want to keep going around to other doctors and just kind of, because every doctor you go to, they're doing almost the same test or very similar tests. So we just let doctors kind of elaborate together with other doctors they knew, just to get ideas on what was going on, because obviously a lot of people were still doing research, and we just kind of went from there. I would do different FaceTimes and not FaceTimes, but Zooms and appointments with doctors, just tell them how I felt, and they would elaborate back and forth with Dr. Reeves, just getting the best medications to be on, the best process to go through, what they were doing for other people, other patients that was helping and improving them. Maybe that would help. It was a lot. Sometimes it was appointment almost every other day, and go down to MUSC, come back, and I would go back down there again, and it was always an all day thing. You go to one appointment, and it was never just go to the doctor's appointment and get seen. It was always, okay, you got all these different tests to do before you see the doctor, or you do all these tests and you got to see this doctor, see this specialist, this other doctor. So it was always a process of going through.
Can you describe the sort of, I guess, evolution of how seriously everyone in that football building, I guess mainly the players, but probably coaches too, how seriously they took the virus, like starting when y'all got back in late May or June and then to now? And how much do you think your experience and Xavier Thomas's experience and maybe others' experience that I don't know about have contributed to sort of that evolution of, of all these measures and protocols and all that stuff, if that makes any sense?
I mean, the protocols that I had in place, I mean, the building was getting cleaned every day around the clock. You had to wear a mask even if you didn't want to. Every once in a while a player would drop their mask down or whatever. But, I mean, it's kind of hard to tell anyone to keep a mask on when you hadn't done it all your life. So the process of just getting used to, but I mean, I feel the protocols and stuff that were put in place were very helpful. And with that, with the outbreaks that we had and things like that, the more people that got it, the serious it got. I mean, it really kind of hit home. And, it did, we'd work out and, everyone have gloves, mask on, and things like that. And I think from players, coaches, just staff members, everyone was all on board with it. And we had meetings with coach and players and things like that just to make sure that, they were doing the best they could and we were doing the best we could just to keep everybody safe to the best we could.
I'm sure you've heard, I guess, people out there say, oh, it doesn't affect, college kids at all and they're fine. And what do you have and statistically that's true. But I'm just curious what your reaction is when you hear, I guess, the sort of maybe dismissing of any concerns about college kids getting COVID.
I mean, it's like anything. I mean, when it first started out, it was like, okay, it only affects older people and people with these pre conditions and things like that. And now when I hear it, and it's like, okay, well, it's not really going to affect me, and you hear it all the time from everybody. I mean, you don't have to be players. You can just be any random person. Well, if I get COVID, I'm going to be fine. And most of the time, you are probably right. I mean, when people say that, most of the time you are right. But I mean, I felt the same way when I said, I don't know when I'm going to get it, but if I do get it or if I don't get it, I'll be fine. I'll be, be like any other sickness. You get it and you go, it works its course and you'll be good to go. And that's just kind of how I felt about it. And when I did get it, I was very surprised. I hadn't really been anywhere, and I just let it work its course. But I mean, for me, it's just you never really know. And I got it, and things haven't went the way I wanted to. And most of the time, most people that do get it probably won't. It probably won't affect them that bad. You may have the normal symptoms that everyone has of taste, smell, and things like that, and maybe a little bit shortness of breath. But most people are right. At the end of the day, when they do it, it won't affect them like it's affecting me. I mean, you think about it, all the players on the team, and I'm like the only case that's actually still going on of, still having breathing problems and things like that. And other players that have had problems, it was very minor and quick, and they just got it fixed. And I mean, not even with any medicine, it was just a process of, okay, just a little bit of time, these 2-3 weeks, and they're back to normal, which is usually the case. But I mean, I would just say, I mean, you got to take it like anything. You can't live fearful of living your life and stuff like that. I mean, obviously wear a mask, wash your hands as much as possible, but at the end of the day, when you get it, you just have to deal with the consequences of it and just the process of it.
Yeah, one of the things that Dabo Sweeney was adamant about, and other coaches elsewhere were adamant about last summer, was, when the season was very much in doubt, it was, hey, these guys, these players are are way better off inside of this building and where we can manage it and mitigate it, as opposed to them being left to their own devices with nothing to shoot for or whatever. And, they're going downtown all the time or sitting home. That certainly seems to have held true, now looking back. Do you agree with that as well?
I totally agree with that. I mean, if we look at my situation, and if I was not around Clemson football and medical professionals that were around, I probably would have been in the hospital. And I probably would, I don't know if I would have been hospitalized, but, I probably would have had to take that route and dealing with that. And who knows where that would have led. And, I was, in the training room every day dealing with doctors and everything like that. And, if I would have went without Clemson football, who knows how fast I would have got medical attention, and who knows, what path that would have led to and what would have went now or everything like that. So I truly believe, throughout this whole process, us playing football and being on campus and just being around was the best decision by far. When people were the food shortage and things like that, and you can't go to the grocery store and get food. We always had food at the facility. You always could eat there, and things like that. So, I personally believe that was the best. Best for college football for most players is, just stay there, stick through it, and go through the protocol of whatever your school or state put in. And I just believe that was the best personally for me and other players.
And I don't want to get too personal, but Clemson covers all the medical stuff, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's another obvious benefit. And one of your former high school teachers, I think you're still close to, Lisa Jackson.
Yes.
She's actually a subscriber on our website, and she has posted her sort of testimony and what she's gone through with COVID. She's a long hauler, and it's been really hard for her because she was a super fit marathon runner. So I guess y'all have some common stories to share when y'all get together.
Yes.
So, all right, we spent all this time without talking about what you're going to do next. Seems like you have a lot of passion for the small business realm. I think I read you want to get into trucking, sort of picking up what your dad has done in the Raleigh area. Is that right?
Yes. So that's kind of the route I want to take. Obviously I have my degree in construction science and can always use that if I want to take that route. But I would like to start off with, just a small business route. And I've been going up back and forth up to Raleigh with my father, just learning the ropes of how his business operates and things like that. And my plan is to potentially start something in the Greenville area. In this area, I love this area, and just that's my plan. Just starting trucks in this area.
You always had a passion for mechanical stuff, I think, from your great grandfather. I apologize. Is that right? Where you picked all that up?
Yes. Yeah, everyone in my family always was very big on cars, mechanical, working on them, or just being around them. So growing up, I was always around them. My grandpa that I was always around in the family, and the other uncles, but my grandpa that taught me, he was big on lawnmowers. He always worked on lawnmowers, and I would sit out there all the time with him. And, for a while, I would just hand him tools, and I just kind of learned what everything was. And he would tell me to go hand him this and hand him that. And I would just grab it and hand it to him, and I would just sit out there all day long as a kid. And then it started to get to where, as I got older, he would let me work on things. And his process of things were, he would take the spark plug loose just enough so it wouldn't start, and he would tell me to fix it. And from my knowledge of things, I see break stuff down, do different things. So I would just start taking stuff apart, and I would take it all the way down to nothing. And he would always tell me, if you take it apart, you got to know how to put it back together. And, the start of things, I would sit there for hours trying to figure out how things go back together. And he would just sit there and watch and coach me through it. And I'll put everything back together and then start up. And he'd be like, it worked. And I'd be like, yeah, but I don't know what I fixed. And he was like, well, he said, you got to learn the basics things to check first. And, he was telling me all these different things to check and go from there. And that's kind of how it all got started. I started working on small engines with him and, another uncle in the family would drag race, and we would go over there all the time, and they would be working on drag cars. And for the longest time, I would just sit around and watch. That was my biggest thing, is just sitting around watching, and I would hand tools to different people. And when I would go visit my father when I was younger, obviously his thing is trucking. He hauls heavy equipment and things like that. So I would always be up there, and I would just watch and hand tools to him. Even coming into high school, I would just hand tools to him, move trucks around for him and things like that. And as I went through high school and college, I would always hang out at different shops. And if I was getting work done on a car, or if I'm just stopping by just to see, I would just always just sit around and watch and help out. And if that was, bargaining me just sweeping the floors just so I can watch. And for me, it was just all watching. If I watched long enough, I could figure it out. And then when I would get the opportunity to do something, I already knew how most of the process was. And that's just I've always been very hands-on and mechanical, and I'm not afraid to take anything apart. And that's just how I've always been. And then with football, on the football team, I was always helping all the guys out. I mean, it was from flat tires, dead batteries, to everything. I mean, you can only imagine what them.
You said you were hanging out at shops in Clemson?
Yeah, I mean, I would hang out at different shops. I was always at Carolina Diesel, whenever we had spare time. And that's kind of how I started messing with diesel trucks, is when I got my first diesel truck from my dad, and I brought it down there. I wanted to do a bunch of performance things to it. And, I don't know anything about diesels. I was like, I don't know anything about diesels, so I'm going to find a place. And I dropped it off there and done a bunch of work to it. And my dad was like, well, if you don't start learning, you're going to have to pay for that stuff. And I was like, well, I said, I guess I'll start learning. So, I would slowly start to tinker with different things myself. And I would ask questions. And, from there, I would just learn different things. And, I would have to explore myself when I was at home and just, take different things apart. And, when I blew a head gasket on my truck, I changed my own head gasket, which was a very involved process, but
yeah.
Did it myself, and everything worked out like it should. And, that's just the process of how I'm starting to learn different things. And, I'm still learning. I mean, it's always, especially with computers and stuff now, working on cars is changing, but I mean, I learn things every day new, and I just love learning, especially with mechanical things and how things work and just problem solving.
So Carolina Diesel, is that in the Clemson area?
It's right in Seneca.
So you just walk up and say, hey, can I hang out here and learn? Is that?
Most of the time, when I was back home in Shelby, I would hang out at Premier Window and Tinting and Audio. And what I would usually do is most of the time I would have my vehicle works on there. And at Premier, I got my windows tinted. And from there, I just asked them if I could hang out, and I'll sweep the floor and just hang out. It's always a weird reaction for most people. And they were like, what do you want? I don't really want anything. I just want to just watch. And I'll sit around and watch up there for the longest time. And I still go up there to this day. We're really good friends. And I go up there this day and come in and help out and do different things. And then when it comes to diesel trucks and stuff, I have my truck worked on down there. And I would always just stop by, and usually I would stop by, and I would plan on stopping by for 15 minutes, and then I'll look at it and I'll be down there for 7 hours and just helping out, or just sitting around talking. And that's just how that is with most things. If it's a shop or if it's stopping by and helping a friend out with stuff, it's usually, okay, well, I'm going to stop by and do this. And then it just goes on and on.
Your mother, in an article in the Charlotte Observer, recalled when you were 3 years old, she had a baker's rack in the kitchen that you noticed was loose, and you asked her, "Are you going to give me a screwdriver so I can tighten it up?" And is she embellishing that at all? I mean, I know mothers tend to embellish, but were you really 3 years old when that happened?
I don't know how old I was when that happened, but that is a story that she always tells, which is probably true because I would watch them all the time. I watched my grandfather and them and different people, and they would always, it was always just like small things. And that's the biggest things, like just listening to cars and, just watching stuff. The small things is where you actually realize different things. And, if it was, I still do it to this day. If I walk through the house and I touch something and something's loose, it's like, I gotta fix that. I mean, it bothers me if it's not fixed. And that's just kind of my thing. I mean, I just love being hands-on and, so I don't know if she kind of stretched that story out on my age or not, but it probably was true. Cause I was very handy when I was younger, and I would try anything. I would put myself in some terrible situations at times, but I taught myself how to drive a manual car myself, and that was by watching my mom drive and change gears and press the clutch in. And they never knew that I would watch, and I would just sit there and watch all day long. They would go on a trip. I'll watch what the process she would do, and I just knew if I could get past first gear, I could go on down the
road. What's the most complicated job you did for your teammates? With one of your teammates' cars?
Oh, one of my teammates' cars. There's so many of them. Lord, well, this happened on multiple cars. Usually, I got a good one. Jackson Carman. Jackson Carman broke down somewhere in the middle of Georgia. I don't know where we went to, but he got off of 85 and decided to go the back way because there was traffic. And he called me and was like, "Can you come pick me up?" And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? And I was like, "What's going on?" He was like, "The car won't go over like 25 miles an hour." And I was like, "Where are you?" He's like, "I don't know." He said, "I got off 85 and I was just going through the wherever the GPS took me." And he was like, "I'm in the middle." Like, he said, "I don't see anything. I just see cows and pastures." And I was like, "Okay." I said, "Well, just send me your current location." And the question I asked was, could the car be driven on a trailer, or do I need a trailer with a winch? I was like, because I don't have a winch on my trailer, but I can go borrow a trailer with a winch. And Jackson said, "No, it's still drivable." I said, "Perfect." So I head down there, and I think I drove like 2.5 hours. And I got down there. It was. I want to say it was like 11 o'clock at night, and it was like the day before. It was the day before. I don't think it was fall camp. It was something. It was something important that we could not be late. And Jackson had called me, so I went down there and got down there. So I was like, all right. Well, I said, let me just look at the car because I might not have to tow it back. It might be something simple. So he was like, well, I was like another 10 miles down the road, but I kept on driving. And I was like, oh. And we tried to start the car, and it just clicked. And I was like, it sounds like the starter. I said, I don't have time to mess with this right here. We'll just put it on a trailer. And I was like, oh, crap, the car won't start. So Jackson was like, well, how do we get on a trailer? I was like, well, we're on a hill. I said, we can take the chance to just, run up on the trailer.
like a rollback trailer?
Just a regular car trailer you would pull behind a truck.
Okay.
And Jackson was like, okay. So we did that, got it on the trailer, and then we headed all the way back. And then Jackson was like, can you check my car out and see what's wrong with it? And I'm like, sure. So I checked it out, and then when it came down to it, it actually the motor was actually locked up. He ran it low in oil, and it locked up the motor. And then the crazy part of it was that he bought another car a couple weeks later, and he called me and was like, hey, can you check this car out? Somebody's doing some weird stuff. And the motor was actually bad in that one too. Me and Jackson have had Jackson was always the worst phone call to get. I mean, we always had a good time, but he was always the worst phone call. You would never want to get a phone call from Jackson. And most of the time it was at the worst time. It'd be late at night, or something, or he's like, oh, I'm going to miss this if I don't get the practice or whatever. I'm just like, oh my goodness. But I mean, there's been many times of different players like just going to go pick them up from wherever, and most of the time it was just simple stuff. I mean, brakes. They would drive their cars until there was not a brake pad left. It was all different things. I mean, brake pads, starters, alternators, all kinds of stuff. And it was a fun time. I mean, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed helping them out, and it was always a fun time. And something was always going to be very eventful when you got a phone call from one of them.
So, do you have a bunch of tools that you had at Clemson for those occasions?
So I remember when I first got to Clemson as a freshman, I remember having a very little small toolbox that I kept in the back of the car that barely had some screwdrivers, some sockets, and stuff like that. And for a while, that's what I used. And when I moved off campus and got a place where I could actually put some stuff at, I slowly began to learn about the tool trucks that come by mechanic shops. And that's where it all began. And slowly but surely, 1 week it'd be I'll buy some nice screwdrivers or sockets or whatever, and to now where I have a humongous toolbox that is completely full of Snap-on, Matco, gear wrench, and just a bunch of stuff. And it's like, okay, I need another one. I mean, so it's always, I have pretty much everything you can think of, but I mean, I'm always getting more tools and things like that. So
for most high-level athletes, football players, whatever, the hardest part about no longer playing that game is what has defined their entire existence. It sounds like your passion about working on stuff, mechanical things, does it make it easier that your life wasn't totally about football, that you have this to sort of to make you happy and to fulfill some of your passion?
I would say it makes the process easier, your transition out of football. But I mean, it's still difficult. I mean, just because football's been I loved it from the day I started playing and stuff like that, and it's been great. But I would say just having other passions, other goals and dreams in life does help out. I mean, at someday football has to end, or any sport has to end for every athlete. And, if it's aged from people that are in the NFL that are, getting on 40 years old, or if it's, an injury in NFL, or, if you go back to high school where, people just don't get the opportunity to make it to play in college, or, whatever it is. But, someday it has to end for every athlete. I mean, and how I look at it is you just take football, and football is an opportunity that helps you create other opportunities. And, you meet people, you network, you can get your degree. And, you just have to take advantage of it. And, for some people, it's taking advantage of it to the fullest and going to the NFL and playing and, just having a good time and making money to start your life out. And, that's how I look at it. I mean, someday the game was going to have to end for me. I don't know when it was going to be. And I was hoping it was going to be in the NFL, especially after, the season and how things went. And, that was the goal. And that's what I was training for in the off season, and just coming back to have another good year and to potentially, if, NFL called, then, that's where I was going to try to do. And, so it has to end someday for everyone. But, I mean, for all the athletes that play and stuff, I mean, you just have to be real with yourself. You got to be honest. And, you got to be honest about how good you really are. And, are you good enough to actually play in the NFL, or you're not? So just take advantage of the situation of, work as hard as you can, no matter if you're the shortest or you're the tallest person or the most talented or whatever. Just work as hard as you can every single day. and, get your degree and just bust your tail every time you step on the field, weight room, whatever, and just be the best you can. And at the end of the day, everything will work out the way it needs to. And just for me, having other dreams, passions, for me, I've always wanted to own a business, and that was my goal. I wanted to, if I played in the NFL, was playing in the NFL until it ended, and then from there, open up a business. And if it was mechanics, working on cars, trucking, or construction or whatever, that's just always been my goal. And, how I look at it now is transition the, competitiveness off the field to the business side of the business world. And just, it's an everyday battle, and, just getting up every day and you owning a business, or just for me, just trying to start. And it's just an everyday grind, and just set goals. And for me, it's just, I love setting a challenge for myself and just achieving it. So that's just kind of my thing. And I do believe that, having other dreams and goals is very helpful if you are transitioning out of sports. And if you only make your life about that, then, it's very hard to transition. It's hard for me still, just because when I go out and I do see someone that speaks to me about football, that's what most people want to talk about. They just want to talk about football and how things are going. And, it's fun. It's great. But at the end of the day, just everything's changing now. But I enjoy it. I still enjoy talking to people about it. And at the end of the day, I will say that it does help having other goals and dreams in life.
Justin, I feel bad. You said at the beginning that talking for long periods of time is not necessarily good for you, so I apologize. I've held you on the phone for a long time.
Oh, you're fine. I got my water right here to help.
Good. Is there anything we didn't cover that you'd like to that you want to talk about? I feel like we covered a bunch of stuff.
I think we covered everything. I would just say, I'm happy and I'm at peace with my decision. And, just for me, it was all about my health, and with the doctors not really having a timeline just because COVID's new to them and, everything, I just felt that this was the best decision for me. And, I've had I feel like I've had a great career through high school and even starting in elementary ball. I feel like I've had a great career just playing, and, it's been fun. I've enjoyed every bit of it. I wouldn't change anything. And, I just, I hate that this is the way it has to end, but, there's other things and other goals that I would love to achieve, and I'm going to strive for every day. And, I'm going to try to get as healthy as I can, and just kind of go from there. And for all the athletes out there, I would just say, kind of what I just said, just be honest with yourself, work hard every day, and push yourself, until, you just push yourself every day you step on the field, court, or whatever. And, always have a backup plan. Don't always put all your, put everything in a sport and thinking you're going to make it, because, you never know what's going to happen. If it's an injury or if it's just, your time's up. And, just always have a backup plan, get your degree, and just strive to be the best in whatever. And whenever the game transitions you out of it, you just, make sure you're at peace with it and have another goal and dream in life, and just go and try to achieve that and do the best you can. And everything that, sports have taught you, just being about competitive, just take it over to the, the real world and the business world or whatever you want to do. And, just use all those skills to help you out.
Justin Foster, thank you so much for opening up. What a wonderful story, and best of luck to you in the next chapter.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks to Justin Foster for sharing so much of his time with us. I think you'll agree after hearing that. Really impressive kid. And we're going to try to keep in touch with him maybe over the next, 6 months or a year. Check back in with him, see how he's doing. Appreciate our sponsors for supporting the podcast. And most of all, thanks to our listeners for checking it out. Everybody have a great week. Cheers.